Welcome to this new edition of Talking Europe on France 24. I'm at the European Council in Brussels, where EU leaders gathered for a so-called historic crisis meeting to try and save the euro. Now, this was a very long, very tough summit, but EU leaders are adamant they now have new tools to tackle the debt crisis. Will it work? Well, I will put this question to Andreas Mavroyiannis. He's the Deputy Minister for European Affairs of Cyprus. Hello, Mr. Mavroyiannis. Now, your country is taking over the rotating presidency of the European Union on July 1st. There's a lot of things to do. There are a lot of things to do, of course, regarding this rotating presidency. But I would like to start with the summit itself. It was hailed as a make-or-break summit. There was a lot of pressure on Angela Merkel. We heard Mr. Monti say, I will stay over for the weekend if I need to, because I can't return to Rome without a convincing deal. Are you convinced by what was decided here in Brussels?
There were indeed high expectations, and I think that we have every reason to be satisfied with the outcome of the summit. I mean, I don't believe that it was, the summit that delivered everything, but it was an important breakthrough in many respects, and overall it's a very satisfactory outcome.
Well, let's look at the different decisions that were made here in Brussels. The first one is that EU leaders agreed on a so-called Pact for Growth. 120 billion euros will be spent to stimulate growth. This was a very important thing for the French president. It was part of his election campaign. He wanted to shift the focus from austerity to growth. Is it a victory for François Hollande?
I wouldn't talk in terms of victory or loss or, defeat, etc. The matter of the fact is that since the beginning of this year, there was already a shift of paradigm from fiscal consolidation towards growth and jobs. And the idea for the Union was to find a way to reconcile the necessary fiscal consolidation and austerity with measures that will allow growth and jobs to happen. The election of François Hollande gave a new impetus to this movement, if you like. And this European Council indeed was in a way the occasion to materialize this shift. And indeed, we have adopted a pact for growth, investment and jobs, which contains a series of very substantial measures in order to strengthen and reinforce growth. And it contains, as you very rightly said, an envelope of 120 billion euros of immediate spending, if you like, which will be at the service of this target of achieving growth and jobs.
Now, economists are divided over this Pact for Growth, because when you look at the pact, there is indeed 120 billion euros, but part of it is a rise in the capital of the European Investment Bank. Yes. So through leverage effects, it will deliver, we hope, 60 billion euros.
Yes.
There is 55 billion euros in unused structural funds.
Yes.
This was already announced before. This is not new. Can it really help? Can it create jobs, including in Cyprus?
I think yes, because it focuses, the efforts. And we all realized, and if you go through this series of measures that are contained in the pact, most of them are not brand new, but in those difficult times we have, if we allow our SMEs to have access to the EIB, to capital, small investments sometimes can make all the difference. Very often you listen that there are 23 million SMEs in Cyprus and 24 million unemployed persons. If each SME was to create one job, we would get rid of the problem of unemployment.
Another key decision that was made here in Brussels, and it's probably the end of an old taboo for Germany, now on, Europe's rescue funds will be allowed to buy debt on the market, to refinance struggling banks. This is very important for Italy and for Spain, because they have been facing extremely high interest rates. This is all on paper. It looks impressive, but will it work?
I think yes. All what is about, as a matter of fact, is to provide direct access to banks, to the European financial stability mechanism and to the European stability mechanism when it enters into force, in the sense that we will have the possibility to have recapitalization of banks without going through the governments. The governments have to make the official request, but then there will be a direct link between the banks and the European stability mechanism.
Will this apply to Cyprus as well?
I hope we'll see, when it enters into force, the connection between the various elements. But also there is a possibility, and this is also very important, for those countries that are good students, let's say, that deliver on their obligations under the excessive imbalances procedure, the excessive deficit procedure, the Stability and Growth Pact, etc., who deliver under their obligations, not to go under a specific program completely separate, but have a memorandum of understanding which transforms the recommendations of the Commission into a memorandum and get assistance.
In other words, you're telling me it's important for those countries that are reforming their economies to avoid a Greek-style bailout.
Yes, I think the Greek experience was not a very good experience for anybody. And we all learned the lesson because, the first phrase of the conclusion of the ECOFIN, of the Eurogroup summit was, we affirm that it is imperative to break the vicious circle between banks and sovereigns. So this is the idea, that we need to find a better way to solve this crisis.
Let me ask specifically, Cyprus,
yes,
your country has requested a bailout,
yes,
because your banks, which are very much exposed to the Greek banks, have
yes,
suffered a lot following
yes,
the haircut
yes,
in Greece. You need money.
Yes.
Will you get this money through the new schemes, or are you afraid that you will have this kind of austerity programs, the man in black traveling to Cyprus and telling your government what you need to do, where you need to cut your spending?
I cannot tell you exactly what will happen, but bearing in mind that overall the economic situation in Cyprus is not perfect, but is still manageable. The indicators are not that bad, and we were on track to fulfill our obligations under the excessive deficit procedure before the end of the year. I believe that is mainly the problem of the banks, which you described very well, and the spillover effect of this banking problem that we had in Cyprus. Therefore, we will need assistance. We don't know exactly what level of assistance we will need.
How much do you need?
I don't know. This will be examined by the team.
It's
that
estimated
will
between 5 and 10 billion euros.
Really, I cannot tell you. I don't really know. But we need to have a sense. I mean, in Cyprus, the budget of the state is 7 billion. So to give you a notion of how big a country is, and the GNI is 19 billion. So you understand that we're talking figures that will be around there. It's not hundreds of billions of euros. But the important thing is that we need to negotiate. Do we fear that we are going to have, a lot of constraints, if you like? I believe that our situation might be closer to the Spanish situation, where it's mainly about the banks. I don't expect a very difficult and heavy program in our situation. But of course, there is the vulnerability of the Cyprus situation because of this exposure, and overall, the spillover effect in the economy.
In parallel, you have requested a loan from Russia, from Moscow. Is it a way for your government to tell Brussels, look, if we don't like your program, we'll knock on the door of the Russians?
Not exactly. We have obligations towards the European Union. We are a member of the Union. We are a member of the Eurozone. We believe we are a good member. We comply with our obligations. But if you don't enter into a specific program, you have the obligation to deliver results, but you don't have the obligation to use specific means. So the reason to have a bilateral loan is that might allow more freedom, more margin of maneuver to the government to choose its own policies in order to fulfill its obligations, not in order to avoid its obligations.
Where do talks stand with Moscow? Have you received positive signals?
I don't know. I don't know. I cannot tell you. But what I can tell you is that Cyprus got already last year a bilateral loan from Russia of 2.5 billion euros, which we used in order to address some structural problems we had in Cyprus.
Cyprus has one of the lowest corporate taxes across Europe, 10%. This is much lower than France or Germany. Your partners are putting pressure on Cyprus to harmonize its system with the rest of Europe. Is this negotiable?
I don't think that there is real pressure on this. There is diversity of corporate tax in Europe. There are countries that rely more on services and others that rely more on industry. In our case, I mean, it's a service-oriented economy. There might be some voices that we need tax harmonization, but there are many countries in the European Union that do not like tax harmonization. And 10% might sound a bit low, but in the case of Cyprus, is applied, I mean, throughout and without loopholes. So many other countries have higher rates, but a lot of loopholes in their systems.
The crisis, though, has highlighted the importance of the banking sector in Cyprus.
Yes.
Analysts say that you should reduce the size of your banking sector. Are you considering this?
I suppose this will be one of the main issues under discussion with the team that will come from the European institutions and possibly from the IMF. Indeed, we have this structural problem. The size of the banking sector of Cyprus is too high. Certainly, we need to address the problem. We need to do something, but it's something that we need to negotiate with our partners. And the way to do it, I'm not an economist and I don't know, but I understand that there is an issue there.
As we understand, you are highly dependent on your neighbor, Greece. Greece has a new government led by Antonis Samaras. Is he the right man to lead Greece in these troubled times? I remind our viewers that he was not able to travel to Brussels because of health issues. That is, of course, another problem. But is he the right man for Greece these days?
You know, I don't want to interfere with the internal Greek politics. For us, the good thing is that Greece has a prime minister, Greece has a government, has a majority, which has a majority in government and which can deliver on the Greece's obligations.
And you believe this government can deliver, is determined to deliver?
I believe they are determined to deliver. But Cyprus is not that dependent on Greece in economic terms. The overall exposure to Greece is not high. It's only the banking sector.
In the banking sector.
Because the banking sectors of the two countries were closely interlinked. Greek banks with operation in Cyprus and all Cypriot banks with operation in Greece. So there is a vulnerability in the Cyprus banking system due to their exposure both to the Greek bonds, and you mentioned the haircut from which we suffered a lot, but also their overall exposure to the Greek market.
You tell me Cyprus is in a vulnerable situation these days. You are expecting a bailout, either from the European Union or from Russia, or maybe from both, we'll see. You're taking over the rotating presidency of the European Union on July 1st. Isn't this too big a task for a country like Cyprus in these troubled times?
It is a daunting task anyway. I mean, it's not the ideal conditions to embark on a presidency. But you know, presidency of the Council of the European Union entails various roles. One is to be a good organizer. For the organization, we are working for more than 3 years. It entails good human resources, have a small but efficient administration. We did the right training to our people. We have everybody in place. We have flexibility in our procedures. We don't have huge bureaucracy. It will be mainly Brussels-based presidency. Then, with the fact that we are small, can turn to an advantage because we are honest brokers. We don't serve national interest that much. We don't have many national interests. So we are accepted as honest brokers by everybody. And when it comes to providing, leadership in order to strike compromise in the Council, between the Council and the European Parliament, I think we are well placed. We are having a good program, an ambitious program, and we can deliver on our promises. And the political leadership, now in the European Union is very diffused. You have permanent president of the European Council, high representative, president of the Commission, Parliament, and all those things. And the rotating presidency needs to ensure consistency, coherence, synergy among all those centers of power.
And briefly, one last question. The diplomatic conflict with Turkey lingers. Ankara has announced that it will boycott all the meetings led by the Greek Cypriot presidency. What does it say about Turkey, and is this a problem for you?
We don't like it. We believe it's a missed opportunity. We could turn it to an advantage for our relations with Turkey. But I mean, at the same time, it degrades Turkey itself, because what they are doing is not just against Cyprus, it's against the European Union. It's not the behavior expected by a candidate country. So, I mean, we are going to behave very presidentially, very objectively, very neutrally towards Turkey as towards all candidate countries. We are going to invite them wherever they are entitled to be invited in conformity with their negotiating framework. If they don't attend, I mean, we will regret it, but I mean, what can we do? And at the end of the day, as I was saying, it's a pity because we are losing an opportunity to change this vicious circle of negative developments.
Andreas Mavroyiannis, European Affairs Minister for Cyprus, thank you very much. Thank you for watching this edition of Talking Europe from the European Council in Brussels. Let's cross over to Paris for more news.